So this is my flight from Dallas to Copenhagen, Denmark, with a stop and layover in New York at JFK. This flight cost $1,373.71. I bought this flight about 2 weeks before the trip. This was more of a spontaneous trip, so I didn't buy ahead of time, so I didn't get any cheaper rate or anything like that. The first thing I'm going to do, as you can see, is I'm going to show you what I bring on a trip. And this is just what I bring. And I'm just going to show you how much this stuff costs. One of my goals for this channel is to show like a little more practical side of traveling, show you how much things cost, show you some things that I do on trips. And I actually check a bag, which most people who travel a bunch may not. It's more practical if you don't check a bag. You don't have to worry about it getting lost or waiting for it. It's also one less step in the travel process. But I actually pack a bag just so I can bring more stuff back. And I actually find that checking a bag makes it a little bit easier on the airplane because I don't have anything that I have to put in the overhead compartment, which people are always fighting over space with. So I check a bag. You can see the bag I use early in this video and how much it costs. You can see that my bag is actually pretty worn out. I've dragged it a lot of places. The good thing I like about this bag is you can replace the wheels, which I need to do very soon. So we'll see how that goes whenever it's time to replace it. I'm not going to show you my clothes, but I do have a separate duffel bag that I put in my bag. I actually didn't use it on this trip, but you can use that for dirty clothes. I had a separate bag. Early in this video, you saw the travel adapters, just for people who have not been to Europe or maybe have not traveled outside the country, maybe rookie travelers, if you will. Make sure you look up what kind of plug the country you're going to uses. Most of Europe will use a Type-C plug, and that's the adapter you see there. But I know of people who've gone and then they realize that their plugs don't work in on anything. You can also check voltage rates. I never worry about that. But be sure to check your plugs. Most of Europe will use a Type-C plug. Here's the camera that I'm using for a lot of this trip. Everything today is actually just on my phone, and a lot of the stuff that will be in these videos will just be from my phone. But ones that are on my camera, this is the kind of camera I use. I use a Sony camera. You can see it has cosmetic damage from when I dropped it in our phone friends. I do use a camera protector for when it's in my bag. The Topo Designs bag that you saw earlier, that is the bag that I carry with me every day and have all my stuff. You saw earlier the scale. It's very practical. I use that to just make sure I'm not overweight with my baggage. Most airlines will let you have a pound checked bag, and that's about 25 kilograms. That scale does both units, and so I can check to see if my bag is not overweight. Going there, obviously my bag will be lighter than coming back. My bag was about 25 pounds before the trip started. If you also saw the Anchor charger that I have, that's just a portable charger. I use it for my phone all the time because I'm always on my phone with maps or camera and stuff, so it has a chance to die during the day. The Anchor charger is just a nice backup. I can always be charging my phone. I also pack a backup phone. Like most people, my phone's my life. It's got all my stuff on it. I've actually broken a phone on a trip before, so I think it's very important to have a backup phone in case your phone breaks or something happens to it, and that way you can at least, if nothing else, you can buy a SIM card while you're there. I did not buy a SIM card on this trip because I have T-Mobile. It worked in both Denmark and Sweden, and I didn't really have issues with it. I also brought a hat. There's just my Mets hat there. I try to have clothes that don't have anything on them, or at least anything that would identify me as a foreigner. Just nothing that's like in English or anything like that. I wear my Mets hat everywhere on trips to protect my head, and I wear Mets hat because New York Mets are a little more cosmopolitan, you might say, more recognizable. So somebody wearing a New York hat, that's not going to scream foreigner. You will see in Europe, in my experience, you'll see a lot of Yankee hats and Dodger hats. So if you like baseball or you just want like a hat, but something that's not going to scream, hey, I'm from such and such place, a Yankee hat is great, actually. I just don't have a Yankee hat at the moment. I use this Mets hat that I got a few years ago. A lot of what you're going to see today and you're seeing today is really just from the airport, from the flight, especially my first flight. Just got some decent footage on it. Just wanted to show you just something to look at while I talk about the things I went through on Obviously, the airport day is not the most exciting part of the trip, but I think it is practical to just talk about the different steps that went into it. So I was very lucky on my first flight going from Dallas to New York. I got from the car that I was dropped off in front of my terminal through the gate in about 30 minutes. And what took the longest actually was trying to scan my ticket on the Delta machine. So it would print my boarding pass and my sticker for my checked bag. That actually took the longest. Security and the front desk. It was all very quick. I waited at my gate for 2 hours. I usually try to show up to the airport about 3 hours before the flight for an international flight, just because there's a few extra hoops you may have to go through on an international flight. I like to show up 3 hours before. It's always better to be there early. You can always just watch something on your phone while you're waiting. I try to show up to the airport 3 hours before my flight. First thing I bought, only thing I bought at the airport was I spent $3.10 on a Coke Zero at the vending machine. As you can see, I had the whole row to myself. So I actually was supposed to have the aisle seat, but I sat in the window seat. So that's where I was able to get all the footage for today of the flight. It was about as empty of a flight as I'd ever been on, because just a lot of people were not traveling to New York that day, or at least not to JFK. The last 3 rows of seats were completely empty. There was free Wi-Fi on the flight. I couldn't get the Delta's app to work, but just going on the browser worked. On the flight from Dallas to JFK, all you get is a little snack. You get some choices, but I picked the Sun Chips, and they're actually Sun Chip minis. They're very small, and you get a drink, which you don't even get a whole can of soda. You do get a choice of a drink. All this footage is coming from leaving Dallas and going to New York. Because I wasn't a window seat, I don't really have any footage from New York to Copenhagen, and it would have been dark anyway, and they want you to have the shades down anyway. But I landed in New York at about 4:40 local time. However, we waited from about 4:45 to 5:15 for a gate to open, as it had a plane still in it. So we were still stuck on the plane, still waiting to taxi to our gate. 4:45 to 5:15. It seems like just in general, JFK has too many planes for the landing strips that they have, so you kind of have to wait longer on taxi. That was my experience both there and on the way back. I bought a soda and a sandwich at JFK for $21.81. The other store that I originally wanted to charge $8.99 for Chex Mix at Hudson News, which is one of the stores at the airport there. I did not buy that. You can see, or you will see, the machine that you order the sandwich and soda on, so you don't really even have to talk to anybody other than when they call your name to give you your sandwich. In New York, and also what you'll see later in the trip in Copenhagen and Sweden, you actually pay a bottle deposit. For Canadians, that's not anything unusual. For lots of the world, it's not unusual. You pay a little bit more than what the price originally says, because you actually pay for the bottle as well. Something doesn't happen in Texas, doesn't happen in a lot of the United States, but does happen in New York, and does happen in some other places as well. In my experience, it doesn't really happen in Europe, other than at least in Sweden and Denmark. I later paid $4.29 for a Diet Dr. Pepper at the airport. I had a long layover, as you can see from the original flight times at the very first of this video, so I was just killing some time. On the flight to Copenhagen, I again had free seats next to me, which is very strange. It just doesn't happen a lot, especially now that things have opened back up in most flights, most destinations. But I had empty seats. That was nice for when I wanted to lay down later, so that's a pretty rare experience. It was a pretty great experience. Did not happen to me on the way back. We finally started pushing out to leave at 10:04 from our gate. We did not take off until 10:39 again at New York JFK. Just expect, this is just my experience, just expect some delays from when you're supposed to leave the gate to the landing strip and vice versa. Just a lot of planes, a lot of going on, a lot of kind of fighting for that landing strip time and taxiing time. As you'll see later in this video, I took some pictures of the meal that was on the airplane. I actually forgot to order my specialty meal. Luckily, they had a choice of mushroom ravioli with potatoes. It was pretty good, especially for airplane food, but a lot of times in my experience, airplane food really just is not seasoned real well. So when they give you those salt and pepper packets, really But the meal they had on this flight was pretty good. The lemon blondie you see the picture of, it was really good. I really liked that. I actually slept some on the plane. I usually don't. I usually give up and don't try to sleep on the airplane because it usually doesn't work. But I had those empty seats next to me, so I was able to lay down. I actually slept some and actually missed breakfast. I only got a piece of chocolate. We landed at 11:37 local time in Copenhagen, and we were off the plane by 11:46. Unlike the JFK experiences, we taxied and we were off the plane very quickly. So my total expenditures for the day, and something I'll be tracking, I'm going to track every purchase that I make. I'm going to show you how much everything costs, and that way you get a good idea of a way to do these type of trips and how much they might cost. I'm going to cut some corners to make things cheaper, obviously, for me. I'm just going to show you what I bought and what I spent, and my total expenditures for the day was just $29.02. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If nothing else, some decent shots from the plane, and I hope you join next time as we actually will get to the actual trip itself instead of just... And as you'll see here at the end, not much walking on this day. It was an airport day after all.